Welcome back to the SweeTalks podcast. If you cannot tell if you're watching this episode or even if you're listening, we're all dressed up in NASA and NASA outfits, astronaut outfits. As a matter of fact.
For October, we always do it.
Yes.
Every episode.
Yes. And we have the biggest flat earth man here. Right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Flat Earth Man is fine.
Okay.
Although there's a musician that goes by that name. So how about Flat Earth Recruiter?
Okay, the biggest flat earth recruiter here, Mark Sargent. I mean, Mark, you are the biggest influence in the flat earth community. You have millions of views all across YouTube and social media. You've taught many people to not just believe what they are told, but to even question it. Welcome, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
We're really, really excited.
I'm excited as hell.
Yeah. I mean, this is something we've been wanting to do. Like we told you when you got here, we've been wanting to broaden out and bring more people, different ideas to this podcast. I mean, with the flat earth, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I think we're all very excited.
Yeah, especially I feel like we all have different views, especially Danny. He's more on the fence where it could actually be a real thing. And then he's kind of on the other side a little bit. So we're kind of we want you to try convincing us, just open our mind to it and all that.
Yeah.
But also too, I'm probably the one that's most against it, but at the same time I am very curious to a lot of the beliefs and why you believe this stuff and whatnot.
Oh, these are really nice. These are heavier than I thought they'd be.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a forearm workout with that.
It'll be fine.
But I wanted to ask you to start this podcast off.
Yeah.
Were you always a firm believer of flat earth conspiracy or?
Oh God,
No?
No,
So-
not by a long shot.
So how did you become a flat earther yourself?
Conspiracy boredom, believe it or not. I was if you never get married or have kids, and I didn't, you have a lot of free time on your hands. Huge amounts of free time. and you get, and I was there when the internet was young. I mean, dial-up internet, where you had to wait for everything. And so slowly but surely I got into, you go down a lot of rabbit holes, a lot of different conspiracies. Yeah. And I'd looked into just about every conspiracy you could think of. Everything you could think of. We won't name names. To where I got to the point, this was in the documentary that was on Netflix, where I just, one day I was like, oh my God, there's nothing left. I finished it. I finished all the conspiracies. There's nothing left. But there was one sitting there, and no one wants to look at it. Everybody in the conspiracy world doesn't want it, because it's ridiculous. It's silly. It's the only thing we debunk to kids. And I said, okay, you know what? I'll do it. I'll spend the time, and over a weekend, I'll just knock this thing out. Be like, okay, is this stupid? Because I have an opinion on just about every conspiracy there is. Some I like, some I don't like. JFK, yeah, I kind of like that one. Bigfoot having Elvis's baby, not so much. Not so much. Probably not a starter for that one.
Is that a real one?
Dude, there's everything out there.
It's kind
of there's a category for just about. It's kind of like porn. There's a category for everything, right? There's a clickable thing for every fetish you can think of. The same thing with conspiracies. And so I looked at this one. I'm going, okay, I'll knock this out in a weekend. And I'm staring at it, and the more I think about it over the weekend, the more I can't tie up a lot of loose ends. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing you know, 3 days turns into 3 weeks, turns into 3 months. And then finally 9 months later, I'm like, oh God, I can't do it. I can't prove the globe anymore. I'm really surprised you guys don't have globes here.
Oh,
the fact you have NASA outfits means I'll have to kill you all later. but there's no globes here. I thought you would have them sitting around, but it's fine. It's totally fine. Actually, it works out because you guys are all in white and I'm in black.
Yeah.
So, because flat Earth is the villain in this case. So anyway, 9 months later, I gave up and I said, okay, I can't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a series of videos, put them out, and this was in 2015. Put them out and then do the thing you're not supposed to do. Put out all my contact information, my name, my phone number, my street address. Just throw it out there and see what happens. Because I'm thinking, who's going to come at me? And honestly, I needed answers anyway. So it's like, worst comes to worst, I'll just rip all the videos down once it's over. And the opposite happened. I had people contacting me from all walks of life. people calling me up just completely. It's like, okay, dude, I was an air traffic controller. Okay, dude, I was a pilot in the military. Oh, okay, dude, I was an engineer that built stuff. It's like, it's not that crazy. Here's why.
Whoa.
And yeah, I know.
So they were very like angered or like bothered, would you say? Or?
No.
They
were
on
curious.
your side.
Oh, they were on your side.
They were on my side.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I was hoping an academic would literally call me up and say, okay, here's where you went wrong. You forgot to carry the 2. The whole thing, you rip down your YouTube channel down, you can go back to your normal life.
Oh,
So originally you were trying to debunk.
Everybody tries to debunk this. Nobody likes. Sorry, circle back to your original question.
Yeah.
Nobody likes flat Earth when they see it right off the bat. Nobody. Everybody hates it, for obvious reasons, because we're told as a kid. Every other conspiracy we don't tell to first graders, but with this, they put the globe in the classroom, and literally, you probably guys don't remember what happened in first grade, or maybe you do. They say, oh yeah, by the way, we used to think the Earth was flat. Now we think now we know it's a globe. And that's it. And then they put the globe in the corner of your classroom. And it stays there for 12 years.
And you spin it. You
Yeah. And nobody, that's all you have to do. And it's below the
Point
American
where California
flag.
is.
Yeah. Everybody does the same thing. It's like, oh, that's where I live. And then you never play with it again.
True.
Or it's like, oh, I want to go there.
Yeah,
and stuff.
wherever I land is where I'm going.
And are the people in Australia upside down? Questions like that. And so everybody hates it though. So everybody, the T-shirt should literally read, "I became a flat earther because I tried to debunk flat Earth."
Wow, I didn't know that.
And so everybody sits there, and it's kind of the metaphor I use. It's kind of like a child's toy, where you're looking at it, it's like, oh, it's simple, it's easy, right? And you keep staring at it, and the longer you stare, the more questions you have, and it just gets worse and worse until finally, your brain fries a little bit, and then you are awoken.
Yeah. What is this right here?
This is. Where are the cameras, by the way?
Right there.
Right here.
Just these two.
Yeah,
that one's
just
in
those
there.
two.
Okay, so let's get the obvious out of the way. So we'll frame this. You are not living in a tiny little rock covered in a little bit of water and a little bit of air flying through an impossible vacuum of space. You are here. The end. Good night, everybody. It's a really, really, really great show. By the way, I think the green room, you're out of gin. So no. So you're living in basically a building. It's not flat. The flat Earth part. Forget about the whole thing flat. You're living in a structure, a building that we are best in bright with walls and a floor and a ceiling. And again, you show this to somebody in the 1600s, how could they prove it one way or the other? You can't. We didn't even have the technology to figure this out until about 1960. And when they did, the government, which is one of your follow-up questions, like, why would they hide it? Which is when in 1960, when they figured it out, it's like, yeah, we're not telling anybody. We're gonna keep this a secret for as long as possible until we can figure out how, because information is the ultimate power. How to roll this out to the general public. So once they figure it out, they're like, nope, not telling anybody. But we'll get into that. So, but yeah, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at basically a flat disc, flat-ish, meaning of course there's peaks and valleys, there's mountains and there's stuff like that.
Yeah.
But both ends line up. And then a shallow dome. I mean, we're talking about something that's 30,000 miles wide, and I mean even this dome's probably too high. This one's probably 10,000 miles high. How do you, it's so big, it's like a giant, it predates you guys a little bit because you were born
2000.
Oh, good Lord. I'm so old. The Truman Show, the Jim Carrey movie that came out in
I love that show.
1998. It's an older movie, but the concept was that they built a small version of this in Los Angeles, a big dome that was 20 miles wide, and they put an entire town in it. But he was the only guy that didn't know.
Yeah.
Truth is, if you kept making this thing bigger and bigger, you could hide more and more people and more people. And then after a few generations, who's going to know? It's kind of like, do you ever remember the movie?
Shit.
What?
No.
Yeah, you're
starting to sink in a little bit.
You're starting to make people think right now.
So do you remember the movie, M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Village? That ring a bell? Not a lot of people saw it. The concept was there were people, very rich people that were sick about crime and everything. So they took their kids, brand new newborns, out to a wildlife preserve, and they built a town, and like an Amish town. And then they said, oh, the forests are haunted and filled with monsters. And the kids and it's like, oh, by the way, it's the 1800s. And the kids, that's what they told the kids. And so the concept here is we believe the reality that is presented to us. And so if people show you the globe over and over and over, that's what it's going to be. But 500 years ago, this was it. Everybody drew the same thing. You can look up something on the internet. I know you guys aren't looking stuff up in real time, but it's called Ancient Cosmologies. Everybody drew the same thing. They drew that. And 500 years ago, then it changed. And I think it was done deliberately because eventually, if this thing keeps going, you know, up till recently, all people are going to care about is the edge. All people are going to be like, hey, I wonder what's out there. We should start tapping that with sticks and crap.
Yeah.
Or be like curious to what's on the edge, or
that's all people would care about. There's a comparison I used. You guys know what a wildlife preserve is, right? So you put like a bunch of buffalo in a wildlife preserve. 1,000 acres, they're not going to care. They're happy. They got water, they got grass, they don't care, right? The fence is right there, they do not care. You put 12 people on that same 1,000 acres, they should be perfectly fine, right? No. All they care about is the fence. It's like, why is the fence there? Who's on the other side of the fence? Why are we on this side of the fence? It's like, have we angered the fence people? Get some buffalo. We need to sacrifice them to the fence gods. Right. And that's how it would go. So
what do you believe is on the other side of the ice wall?
Narnia. No, not Narnia.
I was about to say, hey, for real?
No, not Narnia. By the way, I got some fun things for you guys. Here.
Ooh,
There.
okay.
Oh, wow.
Some of our street activism guys 3D printed these.
Hey.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Quick pause real quick.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this episode, Mark is like showing us a flat earth model.
Like a diagram.
Yeah. This one was made by one of our guys who was in the Netflix documentary. His name's Chris Pontius, and he started out making the original ones because he didn't fabricate his own plastic domes with like cake domes, with the little thing on top. For cakes, and we started building those things, and he was absolutely amazing. So he gave me this. He goes, if you ever go out there and start going, and of course he gave me this right before the pandemic, and so I haven't had the chance really to take this with me. It's like, all right, cool, I'll take it to these guys.
Yeah, I gotta say it's very nice.
Yeah. It's a cool visualization of what's out there.
So I don't know if I mean to throw you off, but you think there's a dome?
Oh, right. Okay, so 70% of the people, there's actually a big rift in the flat earth community about this. 70% of the people in the flat earth community believe that there's some sort of dome-like structure.
Like this?
Yes, like that. And other people think there's just no dome. However, if you run into the no dome situation, you run into the problem of, and I'm not trying to freak anybody out because I don't know how many of your listeners, we'll simplify the physics, which is vacuum. Think of space movies. Vacuum cannot exist to non-vacuum without some sort of barrier. It will immediately equalize. Submarine guys, deep undersea drilling guys will tell you the same thing. So what happens? So like, let's say there was a vacuum chamber above this room right here, right? A valve. You pull it, what happens? It's not like the movies. It's not like, so we only have 2 minutes of air left. Get the duct tape. It's not like that. It's absolutely instant. It's violent. I mean, the pressure equalizes amazingly fast. Well, why did that happen, right? That's because so the vacuum will defeat gravity any day of the week. The question is, when you walk outside this room, why is our air still here? And you say, what do you mean? It's like, well, the air, you immediately...
Because of the atmosphere?
Well, because of gravity. Supposedly gravity is holding the air down, what we're breathing in. Remember, what we're breathing in right now is not nothing. Right, but you can't tell. I mean, because it's mostly transparent. It's actually it's not even mostly. It's like 20% oxygen and 80% nitrogen. Doesn't really matter though. The point is, you go outside. Why can you still breathe outside? It's like, oh, gravity. You mean the same gravity that couldn't keep the air in this room from going upstairs? That same gravity. So what happens? What went wrong? And so you're saying, what's your point? My point is that the air is being kept in because of that. Because of the barrier. So it's called atmospheric pressure for a reason.
So then when we send up like drones or like cameras up into space, what happens with the dome?
Space.
It gets
I feel like that's a whole nother topic.
No.
But it has to do with
it absolutely has to do with this. Oh, yeah. Well, let's go into the whole NASA thing, fanboys. And I know all you guys you guys aren't huge fanboys, but I love the committal. In fact, what's the patch? Oh, space shuttle. Yeah, the space shuttle project hasn't even been. We discontinued that back in the 90s, I think, or early 2000s, around the time you guys were born.
We get that shit in the backyard.
So everyone uses what? You got a space shuttle in the backyard?
I mean, we could build one.
Oh, I suppose you could. So what I'm getting at is everybody that goes and tries to debunk that and leans on NASA. Everybody says, well, it's like, okay, why do you believe that the Earth is a globe? Immediately people go, especially outside of this country. I ask people outside this country all the time. I go, okay, inside this country, I get it because Americans believe, that we went to the moon, rah, rah, go, we're the best. Why do you Sweden people, why do you believe in the Americans went to the moon? We all say the exact same thing. They say, because it was on television. And I go, and they go, it was on the news. The Americans would never lie. And I go, do you know us at all? That's what we do.
And they say that the flag in the thing is waving. Like
we wanted to jump on the moon landing because I feel like that's where a lot of people
let's jump on the moon landing.
Lose trust with like NASA, the government, and then leads them into believing something like this. Right?
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah. So So you have to go to the moon landing first. Everybody does. Well, the Americans went to the moon. Okay, let's look at that real fast. So the Americans from 1969 to 1972 supposedly went round trips to the moon like 6 times with no shielding, no radiation shielding at all, because the only things that stop radiation are lead, gold, and a whole bunch of water. And they went with aluminum and plastic. None of the guys died. Nobody got radiation poisoning. There's still 4 of them limping around today, including Buzz Aldrin, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it because of a race, though? It was
the space race, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the space race, which is space race between the United States and what was then the Soviet Union, which defaulted back in the early 90s, and now it's the just Russia and a whole bunch of other countries. So there was supposed to be this space race, right? And then the Russians, they were called cosmonauts back then. Cosmonauts, they're doing all amazing things. Then all of a sudden we take the lead, and it's like, oh no, we get to the moon. And then as soon as we get to the moon, they quit. They just stop going. And I'm going, that's never happened in the history of sports, ever. It's like the first guy gets across the finish line. Everyone's like, just pack it in. Let's go home. And nobody tried. Only Americans went to the moon. Nobody else even tried to go to the moon since 1970. It's 50 years ago. 50 years, which is why I don't think it's a coincidence that the Artemis program is currently on the pad, and they're trying to do it. And I keep laughing at them. It's like, you'll never be able to fake it. You could fake something like that in the 60s and 70s because there was no internet. There was only 3 channels of television. You could fake a whole bunch of stuff, and they did. You try to fake something now, the internet will just light you up. Yeah, I mean, think
questions.
Go back to like everything. Every production's ever done now. There are nerds in their underwear in Nebraska at 3 a.m. dissecting everything. Right? It doesn't matter. It's like people don't remember like the Lord of the Rings, the first Lord of the Rings in 2000, when it came out. There was when the hobbits were leaving the Shire, there was a car driving off a road in the corner of the frame, but nobody caught it because everyone was watching the frickin' hobbits. Yeah, and they had to rip everything out of the theaters. They're like, oh no, we gotta fix this, and they had to fix this. Multiply that by 1 million now to where you've seen it. I mean, everything gets caught. Mm-hmm. Everything. You cannot make a mistake on the internet whatsoever. And so I kid with people. I said, look. If you gave me a dump truck full of money and said, okay, you need to fake the moon mission like Stanley Kubrick did, if you know who Stanley Kubrick is. We need to fake, I go, get the hell out of here. There's no way. I'd be scared to death. I couldn't do it because it all comes down to one weak link. It's just somebody screws up somewhere, and then, again, that nerd staring at it, it's like, oh, look at that. The star. That shouldn't be there.
That nerd. I'm gonna. There's something fucking completely wrong with that.
Seriously, there are people that take people with so much time on their hands, which take Blu-rays frame by frame of everything that's ever made, and they just stare at it. And they look. It's like if this water bottle moved from here to here without me, doing it, it's like
catch it.
I see it. I'm gonna post it, and then you're busted.
Yeah, it's over.
So do you believe that like we can't send anything into space because of that dome?
Yes. Yeah. No, the space program, what they figured out, let's give a little history here. So imagine this. Imagine in the 1950s, around 1960, we figure out that Antarctica isn't this continent that looks like Australia covered in snow. It's actually stretched around the entire edge of this thing.
Right.
Well, then you got to figure out, it's like, okay, because they were looking for it for 30 years. From the late 20s, really, as soon as they got airplanes, they were flying, the United States Navy, flying, because the distance, this white area out here is probably a lot thicker, but it's probably thousands of miles in. So for 30 years, they're looking. And so once they find it, they're not going to tell anybody. We made some assumptions here. They find it around 1960. What do you think the first thing they do? If you find the edge, what's the first thing you're going to do if you're a guy?
You're going to
fucking tell your
Jump.
homie.
Yeah, jump.
Well, you can try to punch through it. You're gonna say,
Yeah, I'm gonna try to go through it. Yeah,
It's like, get the
Jump
cannon.
off and see if
Let's
bring in the missiles. Let's blow the hell out of this thing. And that's what they did for 4 years. The United States and the Soviet Union was in on it the whole time. And for 4 years, all the nukes. You can look this up. It's not secret. None of this stuff is secret information. For 4 years, they fired nukes straight up. Bam, 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 bam. Trying to and basically, and the first couple ones were low megatons, and that was when megatons were expensive, where you couldn't just buy them at the corner drugstore. Like, it was really tough to get megatons, and so the first shots didn't get through it. If you can't bust through something with a megaton device,
Holy shit.
well, then you're just like, okay, then you're just then you're using nukes as paintball guns, and you're basically mapping out the sky. Because sooner or later, you're going to have to send rockets up, and you're going to have to figure out exactly when you have to start rolling them over and going horizontal and then ditching them into the ocean somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's what the space program basically is. It's a very expensive money sink, a black program where they take all the money and
Just try to make it seem like the Earth is round.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we don't say round. Round could be
spherical.
Yes, there you go. Sphere, globe, ball. This is round.
So then, what about like satellites and all that stuff? Like,
Oh, yeah. So satellites, otherwise we call them satelloons, or at least some of our people do. I got to give a shout out. Eventually, I'll have to break out the app. We got a really cool app on this, and it has one of the one-click buttons for questions. It's called the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, built by a channel called DITRH out on the East Coast. He's really great. But he did a thing called Satelloons, and what basically, a lot of people don't know this, NASA is the biggest supplier and consumer of helium in the world. Not a secret at all. You're thinking, why would they use so much helium? Because they figured out
to make their voices squeaky.
That's good. That's fine. No, I've never heard that one actually. They use them to lift payloads. So weather balloons can lift certain things, but if you get a really big weather balloon and you can, they don't just pop and then come down. You can keep them up there for a very long time. So you can raise stuff around 4 tons, which is around 8,000 pounds. Well, if you can raise something on a balloon, 8,000 pounds, why the hell would you need rockets? Rockets are just for show, for the most part. The big stuff is head up. And most of the bandwidth, by the way, people say, well, our high-speed internet, isn't that going on satellites? No, it's still all underwater cables. Long time before you were born, kids. What they did was for phone lines, they took the phone lines and they took ships with huge amounts of wire and just dragged them down underneath the continents. And that's what they did. There's wires connecting everything. And then they just upgraded them to fiber optics, and so that's where most of the bandwidth is coming from.
So, stupid question, but
there are no stupid questions.
No, this is probably pretty stupid. But if we took like a balloon, right, and let's just say we were able to go all the way, like we would just hit the top.
Eventually, sure.
So
which leads?
So how come like no one's ever done it to like prove it, to where they get like a weather balloon and a camera and then have it float all the way to the top so that the balloon would stop?
Excellent question, and I don't usually.
Do I get a gold star?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I don't usually get that one because general civilian weather balloons can only go up so high before they blow. There's no way you can. In fact, I think even military can only go up so far. The weather balloons usually they max out between 120 and 140,000 feet. That's not really high. I mean, airplanes cap out, commercial airlines cap out under 50,000 feet.
Oh, 50.
50,000.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I flew down here and I think we were at like 38, which is several miles up, but that's not that high. So if you're talking, even if this thing was shrunk down, even if it was 1,000 miles high, weather balloon's not going to get there. Civilian, they've had a lot of time to work out the precautions when it comes to this. The Antarctic Treaty, which we can talk about, which seals off Antarctica forever. And then as far as physical things that we never got in our future that we were supposed to get, which was like, everyone, you guys are, of course, you remember the cartoon series, The Jetsons?
Yes.
All right, it's Flintstones, Jetsons, right? Well, the Jetsons, everyone knows the Flintstones, but the Jetsons never happened. The Jetsons is like, floating cities and flying cars and robot servants that were overweight for some reason. I don't know why. And it just didn't make any sense. But that was a future we were supposed to have. Nobody has flying cars. If you had a flying car, oh, yeah, sure. And I think older civilizations, which is a whole other thing we could get into, which is we're not the first people to rent this apartment. not by a long shot. Our civilization only goes back unbroken like 5,000 years. But if you guys ever watch Ancient Aliens or any of that other stuff?
Yeah.
So, there are older civilizations that go back predate. You're talking about the real pyramids or the Bosnian pyramids or Bimini Road or Puma Punku or Machu Picchu, sunken cities off Japan, sunken cities off of India. We're not the only people that do this. Now, were there other civilizations that maybe discovered it earlier? Probably. I think a civilization can only go so far, and when, as a mass, they kind of start realizing this, then I think the game is up. And then I think you're seniors that have to graduate at that point.
So does that mean so you think people were here before us?
Yes.
Like the aliens?
Like cavemen or like?
No.
Even
Like
before that?
older versions of us.
I mean,
Oh shit.
we're in the year 2022, right?
There's a whole other thing. Why do you think it's 2022 right now?
We're going to take a quick break from this podcast, and we're going to have a word from our sponsor here at BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an amazing therapy service that's provided online.
It's online.
It's online. From there, you could video chat, or if you don't want to show your face because you're a little bit shy, then you could just message them.
And that's the best part too, because if you're shy, a lot of times you don't want to go into those offices, wait in those lines. A lot of people are like, they're nervous or they feel insecure, like feeling like they have to go out and ask for help, right? But when it's through a screen, it's a lot easier too.
And you really should not be feeling that way. And that's where BetterHelp comes in, and it helps a lot. I have known many, many people that have gone to therapy. And at first, I kind of thought therapy was like, but you know what? After talking to them and seeing how their lives have changed so much for the better after going to therapy, I highly recommend therapy and going through BetterHelp.
It's definitely worth a shot if you're dealing with things. I'm a really bad overthinker, and I've actually been a lot more vocal with saying that on the podcast. But that is like a huge mental health issue, and it's almost like a muscle. Your brain's a muscle, no?
No, it's like a big fucking muscle.
Yeah, you gotta
especially yours.
You gotta work it out. Okay, because I got a big head. Okay, but you gotta work it out. Like if there's issues, if there's like things that you're slacking on, you could actually work out parts of your brain like that, just changing the way you think, and even talking to a licensed professional.
So if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online, which makes it super accessible. It's super easy to get to. Get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and switch therapist anytime you would like. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/sweet today to get 10% off your first month.
That's betterhelp.com/sweet.
And back to the rest of this podcast.
Because that's just what media says. I mean, in China, it's like twice that number. And Israel is twice that number. Is it
really?
Oh, yeah, it's year 4,000 in China.
Oh, what the fuck?
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, but they had to they had to normalize it for everybody. It's like, well, we can't have everyone with different dates. So, the Western side of things, the West.
Wait. So do you think that the people that were getting far before us and were here far before us to you, do you think their technology was where ours is today as well?
I think some were better and some were less. There was a wonderful story. I don't necessarily want to quote scripture or anything, but the Tower of Babel was a great story. The simple story is that the first civilization was so unified they figured it out immediately, and they were supposedly going to build a bridge like right in the center. You just go straight up. It's like, oh no, we're going up there. We want to see what's outside there. By the way, that I didn't forget about your question about what's outside here. It's not Narnia, as far as I know, nor is it Middle Earth. So a bridge that goes up to the top, and God looks down. It's like, oh crap, they're gonna make it. so he's like, different languages, scatter you guys, tear that thing down. We're gonna start over. So you have a question?
No, keep going.
Let me circle back to what, because I don't want to forget this. What's outside of here, right? You're saying, okay, well, what's outside? Usually I don't get that question right away, and that is why. First off, it's not space. So the one of the common misconceptions is this little thing. We'll just use this one. It's just flying around in space. You see that graphic all the time.
Yeah,
and the scientists make jokes. It's like, look, it's the flat pancake planet. And it's like, no, what we're saying is there's no space. It's just sitting there on somebody's desk or, in a lab or in a bigger place. Who's to say if it was me, this wouldn't be a one-off either. So you probably have a whole bunch of these things around. Could be thousands.
So have you seen Rick and Morty before?
I haven't. I know of it, but I haven't. Why? Did they do an episode?
Because there's this one episode where Rick, the scientist, what he creates is he creates like basically a whole entire civilization in order to power I think like his car or some shit like that. And in that civilization, they're working. They don't know. To them, they think that they're just regular like humans.
Oh yeah.
So then what they do is they're like, okay, we need all this energy. We got to work. Why don't we create a mini civilization?
There you go.
So is that kind of what you believe in? You believe that we could just be a civilization that's sitting on maybe someone that's a lot bigger than us?
Now he's getting. Yeah. Now you're going into the ethereal parts of this, which is a civilization within a civilization. Stuff that's been talked about in Men in Black and Outer Limits.
And Gulliver.
And good Gulliver. Very good. Gulliver reference. Throwing out old school. Nice. Black Mirror and stuff like that, which I love because it was an entire civilization inside a freezer. It's like an old freezer that would need to be defrosted. But yeah, there's been science fiction writers have been talking about this for years, years, which is in fact before the Matrix. People don't remember before the Matrix there was also a movie that came out very, very close called The 13th Floor. And and that was based off a 1970s movie in Germany called World on a Wire, which was based on a 60s book called Simulacron 3, which is when you get to the point, we can get into like the virtual reality part of this, when you start building simulations, when all of a sudden do you realize as you're building it, you might be in one yourself. So if you built something like this, in fact, there was a wonderful Outer Limits episode which I use clips of in some of my videos, which is as you were building something like this, like, say we tried to build something like this, as our tech gets better, who's to say we couldn't build something with 7 billion little things in there? But as you're building it, all of a sudden you're realizing, wait a minute, is it possible? And that was the whole concept of the 13th Floor movie, which I highly recommend to people, which was, what happened was when they were inside their simulation, when they came out, they started looking around going, wait a minute, don't the same principles apply here? And so they started trying to feel out their universe, to say, like, for example, there's, we'll go into science. And by the way, I absolutely believe that's true. So
it's like a Matrix?
If it's this, right, then it's probably digital. Meaning, that's the construct of it, and we live in it. But if it was built like that, we see it as mechanical because we're in here, right? We can knock on this, we can drink this, and it all seems very, very real. But outside of this, but that's only because we're in it, right? There's a thing in science called the double slit experiment. Very, very old physics thing. What?
He's on touching
making
himself.
real right now.
which says that outside of that green wall, there's a hallway, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
How do you know there's a hallway?
Because we went to that hallway.
Yeah, but you're not there now.
Yeah, because we came inside the room, but we know that there's gonna
Do
be
ya? Do you? Because you're in. Yeah, I know, right? Because of memory. And the same thing we'll apply to GTA, for example, because I did a video on this, which is there's a thing in video games now which a lot of people don't know because we play the games. It's like we experience. It's called flashlight graphics, which is when you're facing forward in a game, whatever it is, you're seeing everything absolutely rendered the way it is because you're staring right at it. Whatever's behind you though is just blobs.
It's
because
just white.
It's
It's like pixels.
Yeah. Everything's completely pixelated behind you because you're not looking behind you. Why would we want to draw what's behind you? You can't see it. And it's like we do this in every game that there is to save resources, right?
This is crazy. I'm thinking like I could see behind you though.
Yeah.
But you can't see Lecter behind you.
Hey, but you can see behind us and tell us that.
I can see behind you, but then we get into the whole thing of how am I really here or are you the only one that's here?
Hell no. Hell.
Well,
I know, right?
We're all having the same thoughts and the same conversation, though. Wouldn't you think that we're all here?
So you believe in like NPCs?
Oh yeah.
You do?
Oh no, there's a lot of it. In fact, okay, let's get into NPCs.
What the?
In the world of GTA, which I don't play because I don't like the criminal element so much, but I appreciate the time they spent on the game. Nothing to the
I do too.
the developers, which is in the world of GTA, most of the people running around there is an entire army of NPCs. People that are listening and don't know what NPC is either a non-player character or non-playable character. Take your pick. which is people that are just walking around. Now, back in the old days, boys, back in the old days before there were NPCs, there were just notes. They were on the ground that you found.
Yeah.
There were no people walking around. There were just notes. It's like your next clue. It's like, oh, look, I need to go to this dungeon, right? And then we stuck the note on a tree. And then eventually somebody said, why don't we just put a person next to the tree? You can talk to that person. And then eventually that person can walk around. Then you have to find that person. That person just stay by the tree. And then you just keep moving it forward and forward. And next thing you know, that person's got a whole family. You know, he's walking around doing all this stuff. And that's the origin of NPCs. Are there NPCs in this world? Oh yeah, you bet there are. You've seen them. You know. Go. You've seen them. Sit in a park. Sit in a park. Go to an airport someday and walk around and look at somebody I'm not going to pick and say, that schlub right there. You really tell me that guy goes through his entire life doing that? What, you know, being that person? That's what he is.
I ain't gonna lie. I think about that shit too.
He's background noise, man.
Yeah.
That's all he is.
I mean, yeah.
So when he goes back to his house,
exactly.
He goes back to his NPC house.
Frank, are you an NPC?
With his NPC family? No. I
am,
believe I'm a big believer of if I think therefore I am, right? So if you can grasp the concept, you're probably fine.
You're probably
fine. I don't know for sure. Maybe, who knows? Maybe there's I always believed there were 3 levels of NPCs. There was generics, which were just, you know, people are just filling space. People forget. I'm not picking up. It's like
neighbors and shit.
Right.
You can't talk to one of those, can you? Or
you can talk to them, but the responses are limited. You know, very limited.
So that's when you talk to
some.
Maybe that's somebody you talk to, and you're like, man, he was kind of weird.
Yeah. Or it's like, or you were hoping for more, right? It's like, oh yeah, you know, well, that guy's boring, you know, or
he might have had a chip in his ass.
NPC, no?
He might have had a chip in his ass.
True.
But I also think there's a couple layers above that. One, I think there's interactive. I would consider all you guys interactive. You know,
so we're real, right?
yeah. Which is people that can interact with both the generic NPCs that are walking around, and then the higher levels of people, which it's kind of like a heartbeat in a way, but the high risk. You know, the high-risk NPCs, in my opinion, would be called the creatives. And you know those people. Those are the people, you're in that town, which is the people that have high-risk careers. They have really, really creative, and they have really, really high highs and really, really low lows. And they can crash either. It's like, I'm so happy I'm going to OD, or I'm so unhappy I'm going to OD. But they're in that risk, and their lifespans are fairly short, but it's a cost-benefit thing. What was that old saying? Greatness comes from loss. So, anyway.
So I wanted to ask, like, dude, why is it that you believe in the flat Earth theory and you believe in simulations and all of, like, these conspiracy theories?
Why do I believe them?
Yes, because they are kind of like out there, and it's not general thinking.
It's a slippery slope. I did not believe, and it's okay. We can talk about some things but I'll give you some of the history behind it, which is because they left it in the movie, which I think was fine. Which is it's a slippery slope. Once you see the first big lie, you start questioning. It's kind of like relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like women are notorious for this, which is once she finds out you're cheating the first time,
she'll always think you're cheating.
She's always going to think you're cheating.
Yeah.
Right? And that's
not notorious. That's real.
Yeah, and if it's a big cheat, it's different to say, oh yeah, he had this weekend. But if you were cheating for like 10 years, oh no, then the whole thing changes. So let's frame this a bit, which is, so there are lies in just about look, our world is based off of some form of deception. So you guys seem like really, really great guys. But you guys lie every once in a while. There's little lies and there's big lies.
Mm-hmm.
There's lies, every part of our life, in business and politics and sports and entertainment and even, science and journalism. There's lies all over the place. But there's government-sanctioned lies, which are called either scandals or tragedies. And everything else is a conspiracy. Once you believe in one of those outside the box ones that mainstream media doesn't like, they don't want to talk about, once you believe in that first one, you start revisiting things. So my first one, I didn't believe. I grew up in an island north of Seattle. I could have been more sheltered. I didn't even know there was another religion outside of Christianity until I went to college. Honestly, did not know that.
Wow.
And I saw JFK in the theater, the Oliver Stone movie from back when in the day, and in a packed theater, And this was, predating a lot of stuff. The internet wasn't doing anything. And I remember I came out of there going, holy smokes, people do lie, right? I was that naive, that innocent. And so then I started kind of getting into other things. Looking at this seemed like a natural extension, meaning it's like, okay, I was willing to visit this and willing to visit this. But here's the thing. Once there's a trick here, which is once you start believing in that, then everything else is back on the table. You have to revisit everything you've ever questioned. It's like, in fact, I can't even, people that I used to, there was something, the beginning of the clues, my first paragraph was, I know people that are actually convinced that the entire royal family of England is made out of lizard people, right?
Oh, I've actually heard that.
I believe in lizard people.
There you go. Sure.
Like Mark Zuckerberg, he's a lizard too.
There you go.
I believe in that.
But the same people, if I go to them and say, oh yeah, by the way, flat Earth, that's a thing. They're like, get the hell out of here. It's like, what about the lizard people? Didn't you try to do that with me? And anyway, it's a slippery slope. But once you believe in that, so now I can't criticize anybody. So beforehand, yeah, I'd be like, if somebody came up and said, oh yeah, Bigfoot had Elvis's baby, I have proof. I was like, get the hell out. Now I'd be like, yeah, I'll give you a few minutes. Sure. Why not? Why? Because I don't have a leg to stand on. It's like, look, I opened my day with that. So I have nothing. So I cannot criticize.
So do you ever kind of have trouble believing in the flat Earth theory when there's all these kind of like laws, like scientific laws and theories that kind of go against the whole entire theory?
But they're theories.
No, they're laws.
Good. That's a very good point, because we had the people that get into flat Earth, they have to basically relearn. I hate to throw this on you guys, but you have to relearn a bunch of science, because it's like, okay, so because again, we hate flat Earth, so we use science to try to we use the tools of science. It's like, okay, so the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and it's going around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour, and the whole thing's traveling like a dish plate at 500,000 miles an hour, and then that thing is spiraling at
dish plate.
Well, yeah, no, I mean the solar system, if you didn't know, is supposedly, the sun in the center is supposedly moving sideways at 500,000 miles an hour, which I don't
feel that shit.
Well, exactly, and all this motions, and you absolutely feel nothing.
Well, so you think if we were spinning right now, I'd feel dizzy.
No, but there are certain things that would happen. For example, so like centrifugal force, meaning on a merry-go-round, right? So a merry-go-round, if you're spinning on the outside, everybody's hanging on for dear life. But in the center, you can just turn in a circle. Everybody knows, you don't even get dizzy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that works on everything, including a globe. Well, if this globe is covered in water, why isn't there a big bulge of water around the equator? In fact, why is there any water? Why is there any land around the equator at all? You remember Saturn's rings.
But with that, another thing that could be kind of used against that is the Earth spins once per day.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're on a merry-go-round and you spend 24 hours and you spin it within those 24 hours and it makes one rotation at the end of the day, you're not going to feel dizzy. You're not going to feel like the need for you to be thrown off.
That is an excellent point. However, I don't generally harp on that point, which is like, I'm not going to say you're going to feel dizzy. However, the things on the world, again, the water. You drive in a car, right, holding a glass of water. You make a sharp left turn. You know what's going to happen. It's going to go everywhere. It's the reason why we have lids on coffee. So, but that being said, the water, if it is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, which is fast, I mean, that's faster than the speed of sound, then that water should be bulging up on the center.
But we also have gravity that works for it.
Okay, let's get into gravity. Okay, so gravity, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, by the way.
Being your ass.
No, these are good questions.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
Good conversation.
No,
I'm
glad.
I like this.
Gravity always gets brought up. Gravity is the magical thing that supposedly solves all of this, right?
Everything.
Gravity is a magical molecular force. Science will tell you this, right? Gravity. Neil Tyson has multiple times on camera said this, and any scientist will tell you this, which is gravity. He says that gravity is a magical molecular force that pulls things down to the center of a ball. We say that gravity, not all we don't all agree in our community on this, which is I say that gravity is just this magical molecular force that pulls things straight down. But in fact, it's almost identical. However, that force is weak by comparison to, say, the vacuum. Which is, if I take a straw and I can suck the water out of this bottle, right?
Of course.
I defeated gravity with that, and that's easy. That was a piece of cake, right?
Yeah.
So why doesn't the vacuum of space do the same thing to us?
Because of gravity.
Gravity, yeah.
Because that dome.
Well, that's just it. Gravity. Okay.
Or kind of like, have you ever like taken a straw and like sucked it up the water, the thing, and like held the top?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the water doesn't fall.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like supporting you, or is that
I don't know if it helps or hurts anyone. I thank you, by the way, for bringing that as an
not?
example.
No, I was just trying to
No,
throw
no,
that
no,
in
no, no.
because
It's
it's kind
like-
of. I'm thinking like I vacuumed it up.
Yeah.
The gravity's not pulling it down.
Gravity is the cure-all, but it's not strong enough. Not even remotely close.
We're gonna take one more break from this podcast, but it's a little different because I want to tell you a story about the other day, and this is like an actual story. I went to the restroom, right, because my stomach was hurting bad. I'm not even kidding.
Okay.
I took a shit, right, in the water, and the water turned green.
No way.
The water turned green.
Did it really?
Yeah, it did.
What?
And I don't know like what it was up, so I searched it up, and it basically told me that something was wrong with my kidneys.
No way.
No, I'm fucking around.
Oh,
but
wow.
but that's basically what PrettyLitter does, right? PrettyLitter.
And PrettyLitter is a sponsor for this podcast.
Yeah, it is. Imagine that was like an actual thing though for humans.
Well, you've never had green poop?
No, I'm saying if
like the
our
water?
water would change colors depending on if there was something wrong with us.
No, yeah, that I wish we had that. But you know who does have that?
PrettyLitter.
PrettyLitter, and
that's
it's
for
for
your
your
cats.
cats. They have a super light crystal base, which changes colors according to, if your cat has something wrong with them. So it lets you know. And also, too, another thing about cats is they're so stubborn and selfish that they won't tell you when something's wrong with them, and you won't know until it's too late, and those veterinary bills
Oh
are
my gosh.
through
Insane.
the roof. We all love our furry creatures. We all adore them, and we want them to be safe. And on top of that, PrettyLitter ships right to your door. It's a monthly subscription. And also, too, it lasts a long, long time. I think like one bag could last up to a month if you're really good with it.
And then it turns into those little crystals that you could just pick up and scoop the fuck out, right?
Or you could eat because they look kind of tasty.
But they don't stink. That's another thing.
No, they don't stink. And also, too, another thing, if you have a dog and you have a cat and they all live in the same household, dogs usually like to go into the litter, but the crystals that PrettyLitter uses, the dogs, they actually like don't like eating it because to them it's like, ugh, it does not taste good.
That's really good.
So PrettyLitter helps keep my cat healthy and keeps odors down. You and your cat are going to love PrettyLitter as much as we do.
Mm-hmm.
Go to prettylitter.com/sweet to save 20% on your first order. That's prettylitter.com/sweet to save 20%. prettylitter.com/sweet. And
Oh yeah.
PrettyLitter, if you're watching this, I just want to say thank you because you gave my cat some toys and they fucking love those toys. So that's if PrettyLitter's watching this. I appreciate that. Just want to say thank you.
Thank you. That's dope as fuck, actually.
Yep. And back to the rest of this podcast. Make sure to get PrettyLitter. And then also how did the flat Earth look?
That's more than one question.
Okay, so we'll go to just the dinosaurs to when the asteroid
you know the other one though, right?
Yeah, I do know the
Okay.
other one.
So no, that's great. In fact, we won't even bring dinosaurs into the equation right now because there's some of my friends. There's like dinosaurs are fake. It's like they fabricated the bones. It's like, oh great, I don't really care. For me, it's like carbon dating is really, really screwed up. That I know, which is before we get into meteorites, I have to bring this up really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Which is carbon dating. If you know anything, it's like how we measure how fossils, how old fossils are. If you ever get a chance, look up something called the coelacanth fish. It's coelacanth. It's an ugly fish with a bunch of extra fins. Just remember that. So by the way, are you hot? You hanging
I'm a little hot.
All
Yeah.
right, all right. Just checking. You look hot. Not in that way.
Hey, thank you,
Don't-
thank
what
you.
do you? No. Or maybe so anyway, so the coelacanth fish has a bunch of extra fins, and it's been extinct for at least 70 million years, right? 70. There's the fossil. There it is. It's sitting in the fossil. It's 70 million. We carbon dated it. It's 70 million years old. Problem was, then the British government found one off of South Africa in 1940, and then another one off of Madagascar, another one off of Mozambique, and next thing you know, National Geographic is swimming around with them. How did they screw that up so badly? Because you either believe that this fish has just been kind of hanging around for 70 million years and it looks the exact same as it does now as it did then, or the carbon dating system is wrong. And let me throw one more, and I will get to your meteorite thing, I swear.
Of course.
Which is people say, well, you believe in the Loch Ness Monster. You guys know what the Loch Ness Monster is?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Nessie.
are there old Nessie, perfect. Are there old aquatic dinosaurs swimming around in the lakes of the UK? Deep lakes of the UK, right?
Megalodon.
No, megalodon's in the ocean.
Yeah, it really wouldn't matter. But yeah, I believe in the megalodon. Sure.
Me too.
Sure. Cryptozoology, a great thing, which we'll talk about in a second. But I will get to your meteor thing, I swear to God. We'll go do the meteor thing, then we'll die. Which is, I know I'm kind of...
No.
yeah, we love it. We love it.
So,
This is interesting.
So imagine, so people say, okay, do you believe in Loch Ness? And I go, yeah, I do. And they go, I go, why don't you? It's like, well, because it's been extinct for at least 100 million years. Oh, I mean, like that fish over there that you were absolutely wrong on. So you were wrong about the fish, but Nessie, you're solid on that one. And they're like, yeah. And I can see the look in their eyes. Like, yeah, sure you are. The meteors. We'll do meteors, and then I'll talk about cryptozoology a little bit, which is fun. You guys like that? Which is meteors are fascinating because they are part of the system. Are they part of this mechanical system? Sure. Do I know exactly how they work? No. I know how I would do it. A friend of mine threw me the idea years ago, which was like, okay, just take some metal ore, use a railgun technology, fire it at a shallow angle, let the friction burn it up, try not to aim at any major cities, and you should be fine. What I think is interesting now that there's, 6 billion smartphones in the world, is no one's taken a video of a meteor hitting anything in real time.
Well, they should have videos of
the air,
them coming like.
Oh yeah. I've seen those,
and it's like broken glass and.
Oh yeah, the Russia thing you're talking about.
Yeah,
that one was a little too close for comfort. Whoever fell asleep at the switch at that day, it's like, oh, it'll be fine. Just fire it off. It's like, dude, that's like a populated area of Russia. Don't aim over there. There's rumors of videos of like UFOs that are like banking into that thing, trying to shoot it down. But anyway, the point is that I believe that most of the stuff is just lights in the sky, and meteors are just part of the effect. Yeah, you see craters. There's big craters every once in a while, but I think that's just decoration that was added between civilizations. The big one in Arizona, for example.
So who's the one that's firing off these meteors?
See this guy? Yeah. Okay, so
I had that same question.
Oh yeah, who is?
Okay,
bro?
so who's firing off the meteors? That is the big question. Who built this place, right? Okay, first of all, let's get the obvious out of the way. This had nothing to do with us, not at all. We had nothing to do. Nothing to do with the building of this. Whoever built this was an older civilization. It's one of two tracks you can take. Either an older civilization that's much more powerful than ourselves, way more powerful than ourselves. It's like us sitting around this. It's like, let's toy with them. Or the divine. And at that point, really, you're just kind of splitting hairs because one man's golden spaceship is another man's deity. I mean, come on, if a golden spaceship landed in the middle of Los Angeles, you know what would happen. There'd be two groups of people that would show up. One group of people, the nerds, would be like, oh, they do look like Avatar. They're blue. And the other group would be like, we must form a church to the blue people. It's like, start building it now. All you heathens, worship the blue people. And that's what it would be. So, but it was definitely not us. Definitely not us. Now, I grew up a religious person. So even if this wasn't directly made by God, if God subcontracted out the work, then whoever built it,
he subcontracted it.
He does. I'm sure he has some, subcon, like Santa and elves type thing. Yeah. So, whoever built it is at least one step closer to having God's phone number than we do. So there you go.
Okay. One thing I want to go back to, right?
Yeah.
Is you said we may be borrowing this on someone's desk, right?
Sure.
So like if we walk into the Antarctic, right, and we walk miles and miles and miles, right?
Right.
Do you think we're gonna end up in a different civilization?
If you could get out of this.
Yeah, like
sure.
Let's say you can get out.
Well, yeah, and that's also a big question, which is because I don't believe.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, I don't believe we can get out. I think one group. I think you could ask for asylum to get out. There's a wonderful story. Don't let me forget about cryptozoology. Which is there's a wonderful story about there was out of all the countries that were down there in out there in Antarctica doing their research, there was only one that stayed during World War II. It was Nazi Germany. Indiana Jones, not just a movie, which is the Germans were willing to do anything to win the war, which was like if they could find an alien civilization, if Harry Potter's wand was somewhere, they were going to go look for it. If the ring, Frodo's ring
wow.
You know, they were going to go.
So they believed in everything.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, anything to win. They were out to take the world.
Well, why not?
Sure. Why the heck not? And yeah. I mean, there was what is Vince Lombardi? You know, the famous famous football. His quote was perfect. And the Germans kind of embraced it, which was, "Winning isn't everything. It's the only thing." And so the Germans, the story goes is that Germans were down there in World War II. Out there in World War II. And that after World War II, we sent, well, I mean, that part's true. We look up Operation High Jump, where we went out to try to root them out. You know, after the second Japan surrendered, we sent a big carrier fleet down there. I keep saying down there. It's an old habit. Which is and the Germans asked for asylum. They talked to whoever built this place. You know, they went to the edge, kind of like a high school dance. And like a high school dance, they're like, "Yeah, sorry, if you leave the gym, you can't come back. You know, you can't come back in. Once you're in the dance, you're in. You can't go out and drink in the parking lot and come back in or do any of that stuff." So. So anyway, no, you can't break out. You might be able to ask for permission to get out, but as far as I can tell, no, we're sealed in there. Then the question becomes, are we sealed in because we're a box of kittens that should be protected from what's outside of here,
right?
Or are we a box of scorpions that should never ever be let out for any reason whatsoever? And
it's like The Simpsons.
There you go.
The dome.
Trappuccino. Yeah. The Simpsons movie, there's been a lot of references.
Right.
They
everything.
They predict every.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well,
they know everything.
The Simpsons dome movie was really great. It spoke to a lot of people, which was awesome.
I actually liked it. It was cool.
But do I think you can get out voluntarily? Nah, probably not. I mean, the Antarctica is sealed off. Let's talk about the Antarctic Treaty really quick. So let's say you wanted to go, right? Antarctica, you know, this big, huge continent that surrounds us, is sealed off forever.
Yeah.
Meaning the Antarctic Treaty was put into place in the around late 50s, early 60s, which said that no corporation from any country can set up shop there. No one owns Antarctica, and it's not even up for review until 2041.
But why, though?
But that's a great question, but nobody asks. In fact, not only that, see, where you're going here, which is, let's say you're an oil and gas company, right? Oil and gas companies can do anything they want because they have huge amounts of money. They can start fracking in your neighbor's backyard like tomorrow. You know, they just give briefcases of money out. And yet these same companies aren't even allowed to talk about it. That's the part that was the big red flag for me, which is not only do they not get to come out there, they should be running full page ads in the newspapers all the time. It's like, it'd be great. So many jobs and money and stuff we could do out there. And I know full well what happened. You know, a government, somebody shows up and says, "Oh yeah, it's national security. You can't do it."
Yeah.
And whoever replaces you, give him my business card, and he's going to call me. And they just do that to the major companies. Antarctica is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. By the way, do you know that most of Antarctica?
You been?
No, God, no.
No.
It's horrible. It's a horrible place. That's, by the way, it's the other thing, which is whoever built this particular thing was genius in the negative reinforcements, meaning you turn around at your own peril. Meaning when say you're a ship back in the day and you're trying to go out to the edge. Well, first thing you're going to run to is colder water. Finally, icebergs. No ship captain. It's the scariest thing ever is like icebergs. Yeah. Then you get to this when it's just ice and snow and more. There's no plant life. There's a few penguins on the coast, but there's nothing there. Eventually you're going to turn around on your own. Plus, a lot of people don't know that Antarctica, even the part they tell us, is most of it sits at like 14,000 feet high. It's the highest continent in the world. And altitude sickness kicks into most people around 7,000 feet.
So it's like, even if you wanted to, you'd probably die out there.
Oh, yeah, you're not going, which is why, again, nobody did go do anything out there until we got planes. And then we got planes, and then we just start going. Because look up a guy named Admiral Richard Byrd, which flew to the North Pole in 1926, and then whatever they found, my theory is that somebody had something like this. But let's say you had something like this in the 1700s. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
You got nothing. You got wooden ships. You got horses.
Yeah.
You're not going to do anything. And then finally somebody says, well, you know, we got planes. We can do stuff now. It's like, all right, send a guy up to the north. And then he finds whatever it is up in the north. Maybe it's some marker. Some people say it's a giant mountain that's magnetic. That's somewhere at the North Pole. Which
that
is
pulled him? Or what?
The what?
Why is it magnetic?
I don't know. I don't know. It's called Mount Meru. Look it up if you get a chance. It's fascinating. But once they found that, immediately, so Admiral Byrd goes up there in 1926, and they spin him around, and the Navy just sends him to the outer rim and just has him flying around for decades until he finds it.
Oh, damn.
Have I screwed up your heads already?
Yeah,
Nah.
I still have questions. You guys want to reset the cameras
okay.
real quick? Wouldn't that be kind of like a way to test out the flat Earth theory?
What?
Is if everybody just lights up weed?
Started lighting up.
Oh, no, yeah.
He's not lying.
Yeah.
No, well, it's an interesting idea, but I think the system compensates for quite a bit of that.
Also,
But don't forget the factories that have been cranking out
yeah.
stuff.
So
It doesn't have to be weed.
So how does that work? Like, let's say if there was like a fires everywhere, wouldn't we suffocate if there was a dome?
No, because it's too high. And it's too big. Don't think about the. Are we recording?
Yeah. We're
Okay.
recording.
Yeah.
So think about climate change, by the way, because people ask me quite a bit. It's like, oh, do you believe in climate change? Conspiracy people don't believe in climate change. Well, I do, because if we are in an enclosed system, it's basically like the inside of a car.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have, let's say, any given point, we'll say, I don't know, 800 million cars, right? At any given point, they're just furnaces. Cars are literally just furnaces with wheels attached to them that they generate huge amounts of heat. Well, eventually, over time, that is going to affect the system.
Yeah.
It's no different than like bringing a propane lantern. I was going to use the whole blunt thing, but we'll do a propane lantern. Let's say you're in a car and somebody brings a propane lantern, one lantern into the car. Eventually, the air conditioning system is going to have to compensate. There's going to be weird hot spots and cold spots. Bring in another lantern. It's going to get weird. I think that the system is compensated for a lot of stuff. But I don't think it's flawless. I think it's strained, which is why we're running into issues right now. So,
I've heard like a bunch of people, like scientists and stuff like that, saying like we're just gonna die off, right? Have you heard that?
Well,
just
there's the natural.
by the way we're treating the planet and stuff.
Yeah.
Does that apply to this as well?
Sure. Oh yeah. In fact, most of the stuff dovetails. Can transition from the globe. Anything that's on the globe can transition to that very, very well. In fact, it's interesting. You look at if you look at like the jet stream on this, it just goes into a big circle, which is fantastic. On a globe, it's all over the place. It doesn't make any sense. As far as scientists saying that, oh yeah, we're doomed, but they always put the dates way, way off. Now, do I believe there's climate change, which used to be global warming back in the day? Sure. But I believe more in the Great Reset, that it would be done probably by us, by nefarious types before that.
There was a show that we saw that it was a plane that if it went straight on a flat Earth, I don't know what plane it was, but it showed that if it went straight, then it would
Are you talking about like the Bermuda Triangle, or are you talking about?
Are we talking about plane on a globe versus plane on a flat Earth?
I think it was plane on a flat Earth, and they showed like the difference that if the Earth it was around, then it would go.
Yeah. So here's the thing with planes.
Because I feel like with the flat Earth, a lot of shit has to do with planes, like the way they fly too.
Yeah. So planes, when they're flying, which is basically just kind of swimming in the air because you just can't see it. They're no different than boats. They're just forcing, going through the air like that. If it's on a globe, because of the curvature of the Earth, which is 8 inches per mile squared, which is 8 inches per mile, doesn't really matter. It just means that, there's a curvature. Eventually, that plane is going to either have to nose down every once in a while, depending on how fast it's going, or nose up, depending on which way you want to look at it. But I've been on a whole bunch of planes, and that plane is dead. When it gets up to level, it is dead, flat, nothing's moving. I mean, I've stared at cups of water when I'm bored. And it's like that plane isn't moving. I mean, it's amazing when there's no turbulence. Crazy how amazingly smooth it is. And there's this wonderful flight tracker video I have on my channel where I grabbed the data from them where they were showing they track all flights. All flights are being tracked.
Yeah.
But they did something different where they actually went sideways with it, where they were showing the planes going up and then leveling off and going perfectly flat and going down. What I thought was interesting about that video was because it was across the entire United States, and they were showing UPS planes and FedEx planes and commercial planes. What's interesting is that the entire United States, there was no curvature to it. It was absolutely tabletop flat. And I'm going, why would you do it that way? The raw data is curved. The data that you're getting is literally the plane should be going up and then kind of doing something like this. No, it goes up, down. and that's how it works. So
yeah, that's how I feel like when we fly. I mean, when we fly, you just go up, you go straight for a little bit, and then you go down.
I mean, yeah, the descent takes a long time.
But then also too, going back to how you said like the curvature, like you would feel the plane nosedive and stuff.
Right.
But
not nosedive, but nose down.
Yeah, it would nose down. But the thing is also too, like you're driving a car. Let's say you're driving it slightly uphill, even if it's like just a little degree higher. While you're in the car, you're not gonna feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm about to fall back.
Well, if it's steep enough grade, you're going to. But to your point, the plane's going so much faster. You're talking about planes going between 500 and 600 miles an hour. I'm really sad, by the way, that they never allow us. We can do planes that can do sonic booms all day long.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah,
but they won't do it because they're the cows and the livestock. It's like you get freaked out. Noise pollution. It's like no. I was a big fan of the one thing I really loved about the series The Man in the High Castle, which was if Germany and Japan won the war. Germany just ran Concords because people don't realize the Concords were designed in like the 50s and 60s, and they didn't care. It's like, oh, who cares about noise? Get there as fast as humanly possible, and that's how they did it. So, sorry, what was the question?
With the car, right?
The plane's moving so fast that again, I'm not kidding you. You guys know this. The longer you fly, which is you would feel it. You would feel these little, even if it has to adjust 1,000 feet a minute, which is it doesn't. It would have to adjust a lot faster than that. You would feel, when I'm in a plane and they change altitude, it's like, oh yeah, we're going from 37 to 36,000 feet. You know exactly when they do it. You can feel that plane. I mean, I've never.
You feel your ears pop.
Well, that too. In fact, don't even think about the commercial airlines. They're easy because you're in those. But think about high-speed planes like the SR-71 Blackbird or the U-2 or the Aurora, which doesn't exist apparently. When those are flying very fast. In fact, let me bring up a plane thing real fast for you, which is there's an SR-71 pilot. That plane went from inception to retirement, and nobody knew about it. It was one of my favorite U.S. military things of all time, which is they came out and they retired it, and at the same time told people it existed. So at an Air Force base, it's like, oh, by the way, we're retiring the SR-71, and the press is going, the what now? and it's like, oh yeah, it's our spy plane. It's like, I thought you didn't have spy planes. Well, we don't, and this one's retired. It's like, what are you going to replace it with? Oh, nothing. We're not going to replace it with anything. It's like, lie. Sorry. Absolute, it's okay. Absolute lie. So, but because of that, some retired SR-71 pilots would go around doing book tours, and they'd be going around the country. And this one in particular guy, he was saying that when he was up at like 70,000 feet, cruising altitude, he could see from Phoenix, he could see the coastline of Los Angeles. And not only that, it's like, wow, that's really far. How can you see the coastline of Los Angeles? No. And not only that, but he said if he looked north, he could see where the Canadian Rockies meet the United States. That's huge amounts. And it's like he didn't even understand. He couldn't see the forest for the trees, meaning that eventually it's one of our biggest points. What gets most people into this is the whole curvature thing, which is when you look off into a boat off in the distance, eventually that boat is gone off the other, should be on the other side of the hill, right? It's on the other side of the curve. The reason why we're even talking right now is because HD technology came out. HD technology completely changed the game, which was now you could buy a camera for $500, $600 or whatever it was, and you could go to the beach. Boat is gone. It's gone. Well, you can't see it anymore, and it's got to be over the. What is it broken? No. Okay. Is it over the curvature of the Earth? Well, it must be. Well, and take your zoom. That's HD. Crank up something like on a Nikon P900 or 1000 or whatever it is. You can zoom that boat back into frame
and see that they're still in front of us.
Yeah, and you couldn't do that 20 years ago. The resolution wasn't very good. It'd just be this blob. You didn't know if you were looking at a boat at all. Well, eventually, sooner or later, that boat has to be on the other side of the hill. But the only thing that limits us, the only thing that keeps us from basically seeing forever is the thickness of the atmosphere. Meaning we can see stuff at, depending on the conditions, 100, 150 miles, which is crazy far. I mean, it should be way, way on the other side of the curvature, but we can see it. And in fact, one of the other questions that people throw me is, okay, well, that's true. Why can't we see Japan from California? Why can't we see Europe from New York? And why can't we see Mount Everest from everywhere? Because it's the highest place. It's like, well, because you're not looking through nothing, right? This is just this is mostly transparent what we're doing.
Right.
But over 10 miles, it gets thicker, and 20 miles, if you guys know scuba divers at all, they'll tell you that. It's like 200 feet down on a brilliant summer day, there is no sun. down there because the sun just can't penetrate. Well, this is just a thinner version of that.
So going back to that, because I heard that, you know, going back to like with the boat, and then with the Nikon, I heard that if you were to focus the camera and if you were to keep it on the boat while the boat keeps going, how the boat appears to disappear from like this. Right. So as if it was going over the horizon.
Depending on what, that by the way is also the genius of how this place was built, because depending on what you're looking at, the atmosphere will, yes, there is some refraction, no question whatsoever. But it also comes down to, we've got some, I'll mention this in a second, there's something called the Black Swan video. Yes, I have seen videos where it appears, we're not shooting them necessarily, that the boat is disappearing from the hull up. However, it also depends on your altitude, the barometric pressure, humidity of the day, blah, blah, blah. But you'll get this because there's a Santa Barbara. There's a wonderful video shot from Santa Barbara. So you guys got oil rigs off the coast, and you guys have seen them, right? Yeah. The oil rigs out there. Well, there's some, and they're far enough away that you don't really mess with people, I guess, too much. But there's one off Santa Barbara that's at 6 miles and at 10 miles. And we shot live video from the beach one morning. And what was amazing was not only did we caught both of them, you know, lined up. So one at 6 miles, one at 10 miles. Not only did neither of those get chopped at all from the bottom, but the big thing was the horizon was behind both of them in the distance. So when people come back to me and say, oh, well, you know, maybe there's some chopping happening, you know, maybe it is being cut off. It's like, okay, where is the curvature exactly? Where is your horizon line? Because it's not in front of it. It can't be front and behind at the same time. I know it's kind of tough to explain without the video, but I will send you the video. It's fantastic. So anyway, the point is, for every video, every person that sends and says, oh, here's the hole, you know, being disappeared is the boat. It's like, we've got dozens that say the exact opposite. Absolutely amazing. And when you get the sun off in the distance, that's where it gets even creepier. Oh, okay, forget about boats, right? Because you guys are going to bring this up sooner or later.
Yeah, the sunset.
The sunset. What happens to the sun off in the distance, right?
Yeah.
Would it completely blow your mind if I said the sun isn't setting?
Yeah.
It's rising?
Yeah, because it is setting.
It is setting, but it's not going down below the horizon. It's just vanishing. If you have the right filter on your camera, the sun will go off into the distance and it'll get smaller and smaller and smaller. And then at one moment, there's some fantastic videos out there, especially on DITRH's channel, where it just goes, it just disappears. But to the naked eye, because you can't tell, it's like, oh, no, it's getting, it's going to the horizon, Yeah, but with the cameras, they've changed everything. Now we can see it just disappear, which is what it would happen. Because
it's like a candle.
There you go. Candle going off in the distance. If a sun is small enough, say 50 miles wide, which is still huge. I mean, it's twice as big as this city. Then whatever it is, which is why you would get, we can't even make the sun in this small enough. The sun in this thing right here is hundreds of miles wide. And that's as small as we can get it with the lights. We'd have to make it just a fraction of that, but it's tough to do because when we draw it on, like we do artist renditions of it, we can't make the sun small because you couldn't be able to see it. But if it was only 50 miles wide, oh yeah, it'd light up exactly what you would want it to light up, which is one of your questions might be, why are there time zones? Well, if the sun, if it's like this, why can't we see the sun from everywhere? Why isn't it lit up? It's because it's really, really small.
So it works kind of as a spotlight.
Yes. Almost exactly like a spotlight.
So don't we revolve around the sun, right? Or is it the sun revolves around us?
No, we
do, right?
Science will say that we revolve around the sun. We say that everything in the sky that you see there is no different, and I know this dates me, no different than if you're in a planetarium. Do they still have planetariums?
Yeah.
Okay, you go into a planetarium.
What is that?
Oh, a planetarium is where you lie on your back and smoke weed and you look at a whole bunch of...
dope as fuck.
Oh, yeah, because on the weekends... No, seriously. So during the weekdays, it's science, right? It's like, oh, look, there's the stars. And on the weekends, they do like laser Floyd.
Yeah.
Right? And people just get baked and stare at the scene. It's like, oh, wow, man, I wish I could see him live.
That's Frank Saturday.
That's sick. That's dope.
That's my everyday. I'm sitting down looking at stars and shit outside.
But that's what it is. They're just lights in the sky. They're just pretty lights. Oh, let me throw one more out, which is the moon. This will blow your mind. Which is the moon. Not only is it the same size as the sun, but it's generating its own light, meaning it's not reflecting the sun at all. And you could prove this to yourself because in fact, a guy called me up. I'd been in flat Earth like a year, right? This goes into the whole ridiculous stuff, right? He calls me up and he calls on a radio show and he goes, dude. He goes, the moon. He goes, it's generating a cold light. And I go, what do you mean? It's colder out at night? We know that. He goes, no, it's generating a cold light. I go, I don't even know what that means. He goes, dude, you can measure it. He goes, I've said too much. And he hangs up. And I'm going, okay.
What the fuck? He hangs up. So, like they're listening to him on the government's
after him. That conspiracy people do have, the whole over the shoulder. It's like, what the hell? Did you hear that? They're clicking on these headphones. So a lot of them. Are you wired? What the hell? What's happening here? Who do you work for?
A lot of them do that. Like they're like.
Oh, do they get a little twitchy?
Yeah. They
God, yes. God, yes.
Have you ever had like any problems with like the government, like try to stop you or something?
No, in case they're listening. No, I never have. And I get a lot of suspicion for that because people say, oh, why do you get to do this and this and this? I'm going, because I don't know. I just lucky, I guess. Sorry, let me get to the moon real quick. But I never. So what happens if you can go down to the store, there's these point and click infrared thermometers. They cost like $20, right? And people use them to test on engines and asphalt. You've probably seen them every once in a while. You can point at it yourself. And it's pretty accurate, right? Somebody said, he goes, you could point at a shadow in the moon shade, and it's warmer than the moonlight. I go, what do you mean by that? He goes, if it's sunny, right? It's 90 degrees in the sun, but it's 80 degrees in the shade. It's always cooler in the shade, right? Mm-hmm. But with the moon, it's the exact opposite. I was going, what does that mean? He goes, the moon is generating a cold laser light that is cooling things down up to 13 degrees Fahrenheit, colder than what's around it. So the moon, so the shade in the moonlight is actually warmer. And I'm going, is that even possible? And sure enough, I've started looking up this technology. We've been able to do it for years. Now, we didn't do this, but health and beauty people, cold laser stuff. It's a thing. You can go on Amazon, type in cold laser light. You'll be able to find this stuff. The question is, why is the moon doing it? And not only that, I was the first one to propose this. I said, if you take a magnifying glass of sunlight, you can burn things, ants, and you can light up stuff that you
blunt.
Smoke. Yeah, blunt. Really? Have you actually lit up a blunt with a magnifying glass?
Have you, Frank?
Yeah, and I'm about to try it after this.
Right
probably.
On. But if you take a magnifying glass to moonlight, what happens? Does it get warmer or is it colder? It gets colder. By another degree or so.
Wait, so if I use the magnifying glass during the night on the moon, it'll make things colder?
Yeah. Oh, it will, and it's like
when really it should be making it hotter because
it should be doing something, because the sun reflecting. So sun is reflecting off the moon. That's why it's like it's a really bright moon because the sun's reflecting on it. Nope.
So is the sun cold?
No. I was joking right there. It's not a bad question.
Ow.
It's not a bad question. It just means what it means is the sun, the moon are completely, and it makes sense. They're not reflecting off. They're not doing. There's no interaction at all. The moon is complete. The moon is basically just a nightlight, an LED nightlight that's doing its own thing.
It's a big ass nightlight.
Well, yeah, it is a big nightlight,
and it kind of just turns off slowly.
Yes, on its own, like it would in a planetarium. People will say, well, how do you get waxing, waning crescents and all that crap?
Why does the moon turn so off slowly and then the sun just shuts off though?
Good one.
It doesn't though, right?
Well, it doesn't.
The sun doesn't shut off
unless you run into an eclipse, and then it does. In fact, I had a guy call me up. He's not around with us anymore, but he called me up and he said he goes after the eclipse, and he goes, dude. He goes, I watched the whole thing. He goes, I filmed the whole thing. He goes, he goes, nothing is eclipsing the sun.
How long was it? Was he watching it?
Oh, well, during the entire eclipse process.
So how long is that?
Well, not very long at all. I mean, like an hour from beginning to end.
It's not that long.
No, it's not very long. In fact, when it totally eclipses, it's only for a couple of minutes. So he goes, there's nothing eclipsed. I go, I don't know what that means. And he goes, there's no object going in front of the sun. It's eclipsing itself. And I go, like the moon? Because that would make sense for us, but we don't think of it like that. It's like, okay, in a planetarium, we just shut down part of the moon. We just make it that way. But there's no sun in a planetarium because why would you do it in a planetarium? Plus, the technology would be extremely hard to do.
Yeah.
So then I had a question.
Yeah.
Wait, are you going to talk about the sun or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
How like the sun slowly turns off and on. So do we have like multiple suns then?
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask. Because there's a spot like in the world, I'm not sure where it's at exactly, but the sun, for a couple months, the sun will not go out and it will stay 24 hours of light.
Is it that in Antarctica?
Yeah,
30 days a night.
That, by the way, that's a great question. I'm really surprised.
That was my question.
There's a movie, 30 Days a Night.
Yeah, the movie.
Yeah, there's movie.
Yeah, the movie 30. I just watched that.
It's a vampire one.
Yeah, I know it very well. Yeah, it was I was like, I watched it with not any expectations. Like, that's a really cool vampire movie.
Yeah,
I love the
dope.
whole concept.
Super
Vampires go to a place where it's going to be nothing but darkness. They just wipe out the town,
Yeah.
leave, and then blame it, on people going nuts. Anyway, it's a question that I wish more people would bring up, because it is our weakest thing, because it goes into multiple light sources, multiple suns, which is okay. 24-hour sun in the north, piece of cake. 24 hours of sun, you can do that, no problem. 24 hours of sun on this, not really easy to do. Now there's two camps on our side. One that says, well, there is no 24 hours of sun in Antarctica. I'm going, maybe. I've got photographer friends that have been down there, and they said there's 24-hour sunlight down there. So,
oh my God.
But at the same time, could there be multiple light sources? Sure. Why not? I mean, anything to fool the public. If you're the creator, or some civilization, it's like, okay, how can we keep them out of there? I mean, little things like that would keep people pretty quiet. Plus, again, nobody wants to think about this. By the way, little things about the design. The oceans are only 3% salt, but that 3% salt means you cannot drink it, which means that most of your exploration is limited to how much fresh water you can carry with you. If you could drink the water that you're sailing on, we would have discovered everything in 2 seconds. But it slows everything way, way down. The design of this place is very strategic. I've always enjoyed the little.
So do you believe that there's multiple
suns?
Sure.
Why not? I'm not going to shoot it down. Why would I? I mean, because again, 24-hour sunlight in Antarctica, something's happening out there. So is there multiple light sources that are doing it? If that is the case, sure.
Because then again, like, it's Antarctica, like,
and by the way, you can't go there anyway.
Yeah, you can't go there, and it's not that populated either.
Oh no,
because I know there's some people out there that just like would rather be at light all the time. Outside, right?
There's only people that are down there are military and military scientists.
Yeah.
You could go down there if you wanted to go down there right now. You could spend, I don't know, $15,000, and they would take you to a peninsula with penguins. They'd put you in a orange raft, and they might take you to the magnetic south. By the way, the compass does not work in the South Antarctica
because of the poles, right?
Well, that's just it. If you have magnetic north, what's magnetic north? What's magnetic south?
Yeah.
Eventually, it should dominate. I've had military people from Australia and New Zealand all say the same thing years ago. They said, "Yeah, the compass doesn't do anything in the south. You get to Antarctica, the compass is just worthless."
So it's just like north?
Yeah, it's always north. North always dominates. And it's like, well, look, you've seen bar magnets. It should be north and south. Eventually, if you go, out this way far enough, south should dominate.
Right.
South never dominates, ever.
But on the globe, isn't Antarctica always on the bottom?
Yes.
So wouldn't that like kind of support the whole entire Earth isn't a spherical because it's always going to be north?
No. I know where you're going with this, but no. Okay, if it's a globe, and I should bring globes with me, but it's just so against me. I hate them so much. Which is if the Arctic is north and the Antarctic is south, then magnetic north is north and magnetic south. And I know they say may move a little bit. Mm-hmm. The point is that for this, all you need is magnetic north, and nobody would know any different. In fact, people fly around. It's like, oh yeah, the compass points north, and why wouldn't you think it was a ball?
Okay.
So.
Damn. Yeah, I was just thinking because our sun is on right now, but what about like
China?
China, yeah, their sun's off.
Their sun's off. Well, no. Well, okay.
There's spotlights.
Now, don't think of it too general. You don't need multiple suns for every place. Meaning you'd only need multiple suns for the outer rim if you were going to need it at all. And again, 5,000 people out there, and most of them are military. Who really cares? But when it comes to this, no. The sun is if the sun's here, the sun's here, and if it's only 50 miles wide, then it's going to work out just fine. It's going to just keep moving off to the distance. Eventually, it's going to get into China. Sorry.
Oh, so it's kind of rotating at the top.
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at this thing right here, kids, which is it's like a needle on a record player. So this thing is just it circles around us. Now the question which you brought up earlier out there, which was, is it inside the dome or outside the dome?
Yeah.
I don't know. Man, it could be either. Because if it's physically inside the dome, then the question is, okay, what's holding it there? And there was Eric Dollard. Look up a guy named Eric Dollard, Dollard. He was a fascinating cat who talked about. He did interviews out of his car, And his conviction about the sun,
like G Savage.
He was what?
Oh no.
He was way into just alternative thinking, and he wasn't into flat Earth, but he was saying that the sun. He goes, there's no fusion in the sun. He goes, it's a transformer. He goes, there's nothing happen. There's no. He goes, the sun. He goes, basically, he was defining. He goes, the sun's just a light bulb, and they're saying, where's the power come from? He goes, I don't know. Nobody knows. He goes, there's no fusion. He goes, you see some stuff with solar flares, but the rest of it is, he goes, it's not, meaning what it also could be, we'll throw another one at you, which is you take a magnifying glass in the sun and you shine it on something. That little point of light is extremely bright. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's brighter than the sun. I mean, there's like can burn things. Who's to say that the point of light that we don't see up there isn't just being projected by something else? So could it be in or out? I could go either way. On that, it's up for whoever built it to tell us.
So then, how do you feel about like space? So what about the pictures of?
Remember the part about me killing you later because you're wearing them? So, how do I feel about the pictures in space?
Yeah, like the pictures of like Saturn, Venus, like just all those different planets.
And people taking rocks on, like when they're on the moon, or like the robots when they take the pictures of the rocks and stuff.
Got it.
Like. How do I feel about the space? Treat it no differently than any crime story you've ever read, which is if one thing's faked, it's all faked. Meaning, do you remember the movie Heat? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
With Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. Okay.
Yeah.
What is it?
You remember
What's
Heat, the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, it was a great crime movie about crews that would rob, bank trucks.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
Willis?
The what?
No, it was a song that I was thinking of. I'm sorry.
That's all right. You can sing.
No,
that's
bad.
cool.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Is he a singer?
Yeah, he likes movies too.
Oh, okay.
So
well, okay.
he refers probably the soundtrack of the movie, right?
So Heat, when one of the when one of the armored truck guards was killed, they had to kill the rest of them because, well, if you're gonna kill one, you might as well kill the rest because the punishment's the same.
Yeah.
So if Apollo is fake, right? Then why would you make anything real? I've had guys come at me and say, okay, the moonlit missions are absolute garbage. They're just a hot dumpster fire. But that doesn't mean the ISS is fake. I'm going, why would that be real? I go, if you're going to get nailed for one thing, you're going to get nailed for all of it. So why would, there's no point of making anything real. So you fake everything you freaking can.
But why not just tell some of the truth, or at least like a part of the truth?
Or why fake it? Like, what's the point of faking?
Okay, let's get into that real fast, which is why fake this? Why would you hide this? Why not tell the people that this is where you are? But why not give it to them? Information is power, but most of it really comes down to, I've been giving this some thought recently, most of it comes down to bad timing, which is you didn't figure this out till almost 1960. Well, civilization's already built. Everything's built. The government structures are in place. The economies are in place. Everything's set up. Everything's working just the way.
So they're like, why fuck it
up?
Yeah.
Why?
So
mess it up?
So much of a lie that you just have to keep.
Oh my God! Think of it this way. Okay, let's say you're in an Illuminati meeting in a table like this, right?
Yeah.
You're all wearing cloaks and you're smoking cigarettes for whatever reason. It's really dark in there, and somebody says, "Okay, what would be the worst? What's the worst that could happen?" If you told people in 1960 this was happening. Okay, well, it'd be three things. First would be academically, every university in the world. Think of what would happen. Astrophysics and astronomy gone until you don't even know how to redefine that. And then the rest of the physical sciences, biology, geology, hydrology, archaeology, anything with ethnology has to be rebuilt. Libraries have to be emptied. What do you do? I mean, students, you'd have to just send them home. You wouldn't even know what to do. That's every university. That's just academics.
Yeah.
Financially, that's a lot quicker, which is you'd have to suspend world markets for months until you figured out what it meant. The stock market would just be in utter chaos. You just have to shut it down because you just couldn't trust it because people would be like, what industry is going to move? What does this mean in the grand scheme of things? But the big one is religion. The five major religious houses of the world, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. You're giving them leverage against science simultaneously. And that's 80% of the world. And you're saying, oh, yeah, by the way, don't beat up on science too bad, even though they've been clubbing you over the head with textbooks for the last 5 centuries. Show some restraint. That's never going to happen. They were just light them up. Science would never recover. That's the shortest Illuminati meeting ever. People at the end be like, yeah, so we're not talking about that. I'm going to put a pin in that and then put that folder somewhere and then burn the folder. They're not going to want to talk about
You
it.
hit that joint a little too good, boss.
So, I guess like speaking of like all these lies and stuff, right?
Right.
Because honestly, I'm like kind of 50-50 about the moon landing as well.
Yeah.
Why do you think that they threw away all their technology or it just happened to vanish or whatever they say about it?
You had to because why?
Because like that's what makes me think it's not real. Because like you have all this technology, why the fuck haven't we been back?
Yeah.
Especially because we advanced so much.
Oh yeah.
So
Again,
like look at like
you got that's our future right there. That's it. That's what we got. We didn't get flying cars. We got freaking
phones,
smartphones. That's what we got. And there's no robot servants, nothing like that. Why did NASA cripple itself? Meaning after 1972, people don't know this. You can look this up. I put this in one of my clues, which was the only full picture of Earth from space was taken in 1972 from Apollo 17. You know when the next picture was taken of full? 2015. Damn. 43 years later. And I know exactly why. It's because they're terrified of faking it. They don't know what to do. As technology got better and better and better, there were people that questioned the Apollo program back in the 70s. But the only where are you going to go? There's no internet in the 70s. The only thing you could do is go to UFO conferences and set up a table and be like, oh, I don't think here's what's wrong, and just nerds spouting nonsense apparently. Well, now that same nerd can review all the photos from NASA, and you're right. The technology we should have been there. The space race shouldn't have been like that. It should have been the Soviets put 2 people, we put 3 people. Small base, bigger base. Time magazine says, has the Cold War reached the moon? That's how it was supposed to go, and it didn't. And the reason was, and you guys know because where you are, is because studios don't have continuity with each other. Even if you had MGM and Warner Brothers trying to make the exact same movie at the exact same time, there's going to be continuity issues, and they're right next to each other, right? Imagine if you've got a studio at an Air Force base out in Nevada and a studio in Moscow. It's never going to work. Somebody be like, their dirt's too brown, or this is too wrong, and there'd be no. It's the same reason why there's no stars in any moon footage ever.
I saw that too.
Because they say the stars are dead.
Well, the reason why they usually blame it on exposure.
Aren't stars dead?
I think so.
Right?
The shooting stars.
Well, it's not that they say that they're dead. It's just
or they're so far away or some shit.
That they're light years away that you won't see it.
The exposure setting, which is a bunch of crap, because it's like, okay, if it's an exposure setting, take a roll of film and change the exposure setting and take a shot. But the astronauts said, no, we never saw any stars. The reason why, again, the nerd argument, which is a nerd's going to, it's going to stare at it. It's like, hey, the belt of Orion shouldn't be there because everything was time and date stamped. And he'd just work out the geometry, be like, no, the belt of Orion should be over there or should be behind them. And that's it. It's over. You can only do that once. As somebody, some Illuminati, it's like, no stars. And that's it. And they just kill it.
I like that guy.
the Illuminati guy.
I like that voice.
Sorry, I have to imitate them a lot.
I like that voice.
Well, we got an Uber coming in 10 minutes. So
okay.
I was going to say, if you have any more burning questions.
Yeah,
I have one.
What?
There's a big thing with this one guy, Sneeko, yeah, they're they're influencers that have been around for a while.
Yeah.
But they've been really hot on the Matrix and escaping the Matrix. What does that mean? Because earlier when you were talking about the dome,
right,
and I was thinking is that the whole goal to get out of the dome? And now you're escaped, you won. What's
I've got mixed feelings on winning and losing in this particular game. I don't think this place can only be one of 3 things, which is, okay, is it a prison planet? I don't know if it's a prison planet because it's awfully nice. There's some really wonderful places here. Is it entertainment? If it was entertainment, a lot more people would be having fun, and there's a lot of NPCs. I think it's more of school than anything else. I think it's an education system. I think it's perspective. I think that what's here, I think you're supposed to be here. Let's end with this, or something close to this. And if you have a follow-up question, that's fine. Which is, I think you're here because it's cyclical, meaning this world is 99% conflict. It doesn't matter how rich, how powerful, how beautiful, how talented you are. There's always something to complain about. Always, always. Money people always complain about money. Beautiful people always stare in the mirror. Empowered people want more power, and so on and so on. Well, if that's the case, if this world is 99% conflict, then what's outside of here, I believe, is an unlimited universe. If you want to call it heaven or Shambhala or Nirvana or whatever it is, but I think that is 99% unlimited. And you are there for a much, much longer time until you run out of ideas. I think this universe kind of is fueled by novelty. Something we ask each other, hey, what's up? What's new? What's happening? Because we always want what's new. People are running out of Netflix right now. Or watching, subtitle stuff. Nobody watches subtitle stuff. But
that is true. It became like a.
We're running out. It's like, oh, look, a new Korea thing. I'm gonna watch that because they make some good stuff. So, but anyway, I think you're there for certain. Let me throw the genie at you really quick, and then just let me know when that thing shows up. Which is okay. So let's say you're in an unlimited universe, right? Let's say you're in heaven, whatever you want to call it, and the genie, because the genie gives you a million wishes. I was going to say 3 wishes, but you're clever. You say, I want to have unlimited wishes. So it's okay.
You can say you wish for 3 more wishes at the end of the
There you
race.
go. And you just keep hitting stuff. You date everyone you want to date. You become a race car driver. You become a fireman. You become a whatever it is, a superhero, immortal, the most beautiful person in the world, and so on and so on. Well, eventually you're going to run out of ideas. Everybody does. Nobody makes it to a million wishes. They don't. So what happens is eventually you go to the genie and you say, hey, so I'm tapped out. What do I do? What do I do? And he goes, well, I got a thing for you. You're not going to like it very much. In fact, you're going to hate it. But you're really going to dig it at the end. It's like, what is it? Well, you're going to go to a place. It's limited lifespan, unlimited ways to die. Most of it's conflict. But when you get out of there, you're going to appreciate this like it's brand new. And you say, well, what's the catch? And he goes, the catch is you're never even going to know. We had this conversation. And he snaps his fingers, and voila, you are here. Thanos style.
That's crazy.
So that's what I would. That's the only thing that made sense to me when I was looking at it. Because again, this world is 99% conflict.
Is that called the egg theory?
I don't know if it's the egg theory.
It's called the Big Bang Theory.
You should look up the egg theory because it's very similar to that.
Wouldn't surprise me.
The only thing that's different is instead of that just happens once.
Yeah.
It happens. You're gonna be everybody that's ever been alive.
Sure.
And then after that, after you've lived everybody that's ever been alive, now you have your own world.
See, I didn't know that, but yeah, that makes it's not new. It's not new. There's nothing to say, and there's nothing new under the sun. but yeah, that's something I believe in, which is we're here for a reason. We're here to gain perspective. And as far as escaping, there's an old Mayan saying.
Well, we all stand up against the government.
Well, yeah, you want to rage against the machine. Hey, great. No, I'm not promoting the band necessarily. Oh, they're a pretty good band. So, which is the Mayans had an interesting saying, which was, don't live a good life. Don't live a certain life. He goes, just live as long as you can. And I thought that was weird. It's like, it didn't make any sense to me. It's like, oh yeah, that would make sense because you'd want to stay around and learn as much as you could because, well, you know what's on the other side. So anyway, there you go. Mind's blown. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, we hope. We hope we opened a lot of people's minds with this podcast. Definitely ours. It was super cool learning about everything.
Now I'm gonna start thinking there's a dome around Earth.
It's super. I'm
gonna start looking outside, and I don't know.
Well, when you're talking to guests, flash them these every once in a while. You want to trigger some guests. Joe Rogan, by the way, even though he hates us, he loves us.
No, I like watching him too, and he does.
He'll do that. He'll be like, "What do you think about the flat Earth?" Right? To anybody, it's like an astrophysicist. Be, hey, what do you think about that? He's waiting for people to like develop a tick, and start losing it. And that's why he tortures Eddie Bravo so much because Eddie, who's one of ours. Celebs, by the way, who are you didn't ask, but I'll throw them out there. People,
Kyrie Irving,
Shaq's back in it. Tyson's back in it.
I won't be with the Illuminati.
Who's the guy that subbed to Andrew Tate? Who's the guy that subbed to him for a while?
Aiden Ross.
No, one of you guys.
KSI. Sneeko. Are you talking about?
No. One of you guys were following Andrew Tate for a while,
Logan.
right?
Oh, Logan.
Oh yeah.
It was him.
He's in it.
Andrew Tate, really?
Yeah. I put his video on his thing. There's a lot of people that are into it. Most of the celebs, though, in fact, some I cannot name, they're saying, look, we saw what happened to Kyrie. It's a little dicey. We don't want to because they're afraid of what might happen. I mean, Shaq had to renounce, he had to renounce this for a while because his sponsors, I think Arizona Tea came after him.
Oh, wow.
So you've had celebrities come up to you and say that they support the flat Earth theory and they believe in it,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they just don't want to come out publicly.
Oh yeah. I had a guy from, I'm not going to name the military show. He came up to me when I was shooting at Shane Dawson's thing, and Shane Dawson wasn't there. Jared was there, and he comes after me afterwards, and he shakes my hand. He goes, "I was never here." And I'm going, "Okay."
Damn.
Yeah,
Damn.
it happens.
There's a lot of closet flat Earthers.
90% of our guys are still closeted.
If somebody told me I was never here, I would be like, "What the fuck?"
Well, because he does, in Hollywood, you don't want to blow the gate.
Yeah.
He
Get
just
blacklisted.
started.
Yeah, but
he had-
I've never been told like I wasn't here. Like,
well, not in a government section. It
Yeah.
wasn't like a
Actually, I have
like a
before.
spy that came and
Maybe
so-
at a party, someone said they weren't supposed to be.
oh
there.
yeah.
Well, yeah, there's
I
that.
get that.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough.
No, yeah.
No,
Yeah,
thank
we
you
can't
for
thank
coming
you
on.
enough. Thank you.
If
Yeah.
there's any resources you need, anything at all, if there's any examples, it's like, hey, what about this? Because that's what the follow-ups are. And your comment sections will be like, what about this, or how does this work? And we've heard them. So
Hey, maybe we can get a part two.
Yeah, bring you right back.
I'd be
back.
happy to.
okay.
I would love
Yeah, it
to.
was a pleasure
Hey,
having you on.
well,
No, it's good.
if you made it this far, and if you have more questions, drop them down below.
Drop him down
Or
below.
message us.
All of his socials will be in the description too.
Yeah.
Message him directly. He'll
Oh, yeah.
answer if he wants to.
Yeah.
But-
No, I don't mind. I mean, I get a lot of questions, but there's a lot. What I try to tell people, I told them this in the last book, which is let me leave you with this. If you like your life the way it is now, if everything's awesome, thumbs up, great. You wake up every day, don't look at this. Because, it is like the Matrix in that. Because you get to a point where you will not be able to turn back. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. We have a 99% retention rate. That's bigger than any organized religion because we didn't break it out. I didn't break the globe for you. I didn't convince you or persuade you. You broke it yourself. So how are you going to put it back together when you broke it?
Yeah, that's true.
So people that get into it, yeah.
Uh-oh.
Well, thank you for watching and thank
That
you for
one. I
listening.
think-
Mark
one.
Sargent, everybody.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate you.
Love you guys.